Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. Today's video is going to be about concealed weapons carry, gun permits, and pretty much anything having to do with defending yourself with a lethal weapon. As many of you know, and as probably as many of you are going to be shocked to find out, I have been carrying a gun for many years. And it's not an issue I even think about because I'm not a gun nut. And in fact, in going into making this video, I had a lot of mixed emotions. One of them is there's a million videos out there by gun nuts talking about all the different things that you can do to, to carry a weapon, what kind of weapon to carry, what kind of rounds are effective, and all that stuff. And most of these gun nuts, they've got cell phones with cameras in them, and they'll make videos and post them on YouTube, so you can hear that side of the story. And in fact, before I ever got into the legal part of owning a gun, I went and watched a whole lot of those videos, and I was kind of split for a long time about whether or not to do this. But all my life I've been the kind of guy that likes to make sure that all my bases are covered, and I'm doing everything that's asked of me. It's never gotten me anywhere. It's usually caused me trouble, but I always like to err on the side of what I think is right. And since I was carrying a gun around, I felt like I needed to go ahead and get paperwork done, so that if I ever got searched for whatever reason and the cops found my gun, they wouldn't lock me up for a year for some kind of draconian thing that they do. Well, anyway, I finally did go ahead and fill out the paperwork, and they really make you jump through hoops. If you want to carry a gun, if you want a concealed weapon permit in the state of Mississippi, and it's probably the same for a lot of states, and in fact, since Mississippi is always considered backwards, it's very likely that I had it pretty easy. If you live in some place like Washington, D.C. or California, and you want a gun permit, a concealed weapon permit, probably you have to pay off a whole bunch of judges, and it's probably like $100,000. I got away with, I don't remember what it was now, but let's just say $250. But part of that was that it was a one-time deal. You jump through hoops for about 6 months, you fill out all kinds of paperwork, and then the next time it comes around, all you got to do is pay out $50. It's kind of like a driver's license. You got to take a driving test and all, and the next time you need a driver's license, you just basically go down and get your picture took again. So, I guess a week ago, I got this stack of papers to renew my gun permit, and it's, I don't know, this is probably 60 sheets, 60 pages of stuff, and I start reading it. And a lot of the cost of getting a gun permit is going down and getting a passport photo, and then getting your fingerprints taken and sent off to the FBI to find out, who you really are. And when it was all said and done, this is going to cost me just a few dollars less than what it cost me the first time. Now, there is a thing in here that says I can get my permit for free if I am a disabled veteran. And believe it or not, I actually am a disabled veteran. I'm a lifelong member of the Disabled American Veterans Association and all them other things. That when you get out of the military, there's the combat veterans and the foreign veterans and the veterans from the South and veterans with clean fingernails and all, whatever kind of foolish things that you can be if you're a veteran. I'm basically all of that stuff. But I'm reading this, and for me to get my free concealed weapons permit, I gotta drive all day to some stupid office, which means I'm gonna have to get a hotel room, and then I'm gonna have to drive all day the next day. And the permit itself, what it's going to save me is $35. I still got to come up with all the money for the other stuff. Still got to go, perform all the rituals. And basically, that's the main thing I don't want to do, is perform a bunch of rituals to the god of civilization. I've always, in my life, I've spent a lot of my life making fun or pointing out the foolishness of performing rituals for the God of civilization. You know, people go to college and they will get themselves into a lifetime of debt, and then while they're there, all they have to do is memorize a bunch of lies about how the economy works, lies about how the government works, lies about how evolution works, philosophies, whatever. And at the end of it all they get is a piece of paper with some kind of little sticker on it. You know, it's not like first grade where you just get a star. You get some big thing like this with a star. And it's not just your first grade teacher that signs it, it's some governor. Even though he really doesn't sign it. They just stamp it. And in fact, I think now when they print the certificates, they just go ahead and print them up with the certificate, with the signature already on it. So I got to thinking, and I did a lot of thinking before I ever got my first permit. And in fact, I'm going to show you that so you can be even more shocked. Let's see here. I know you ain't going to see that from there, but I really don't want you to see all the details anyways. This got, you know, my social security, I guess, and all that stuff. What's this here? Alright, this here. Yeah, there's my thingamajig. I paid extra for that too, and then I had to pay extra for the wallet that would hold it. So anyway, I got all that junk, and I don't know, I had that same intoxicated feeling that people get when they get a college degree. So I can't, at least it helps me to be somewhat understanding of what these idiots believe in, because I believe in it a little bit myself. At least I know the effect. I know the rush you get from having that. But anyways, here's part of the reason I even have a gun. You know, I'm a guy that doesn't want to hurt anybody, so you might be thinking, why would somebody like Sustenance and Covinger have a gun? Well, I've been abused all my life. I mean, even as a small child, first day of first grade, it seemed to me every kid in the school, before they let us into the building, we were all out on the playground, and some kid said something about me, and every kid out there chased me down and beat me. And I'm not kidding. I was a 6-year-old. I was out on the playground with maybe 24 children standing on me and kicking me in the head, and kicking me in the chest, sticking me in the stomach, in the back, with a teacher standing there watching. And it just, I don't know what these teachers are thinking, if they're getting off on it, or if they feel like, well, there's nothing I can do, or, I mean, these are 6-year-olds. But the next day I went to school, and same thing. And this happened all my life. And in fact, the way I ended up with my wife is that my wife used to get beaten every day. Now, she's mentally damaged from it, and maybe I am too, just in a different way. But, you know, I went on to the whole time I was in school, I wanted to kill somebody. You know, it's like, man, if I was in first grade and I had a gun, I would kill every one of the kids on this school ground. So after school, I ended up in the Navy. It was the same thing. You know, I was promised the world. I went in as an E4. I got out 6 years later as an E4. I should have been at least an E6 by the time I got out. But I wasn't one of them. They knew that, I mean, I didn't even have to start talking. As soon as I walked, you know, into boot camp, everybody knew that I was different, and they were going to do everything they could to make me like them. And that included beatings and mockings. And same thing on my first ship. Every school I ever went to when I was in the Navy. Constantly abused. And there were other guys that were really like not part of the program, like me, and they were always abused. And one time, me and this guy were standing watch together, and he looked really bad. I mean, he looked rough, like he just was sick. And I said, is there anything wrong? What is wrong? You know, do you need help? And he says, no, I need some sleep. And what had happened is these guys just arbitrarily said, hey, that guy doesn't fit in. Let's torture him. So they started giving him all these watch assignments and work assignments, and I knew what was going on because they did that stuff to me. It's like every time we get into a port, you know, we'd have a week in port, and I'd be, great, man, I've never been to France before, or I've never been to Yugoslavia, or whatever. This is going to be great. And you get there and they go, oh, we really want you to go to shore, but we just determined that the steam interceptor valve program timer needs adjustment, and we don't think it can be adjusted properly unless you stay here all day while we go out on leave. So I tell you, if you're not a vile, malicious, patriotic hero and you join the military, you're asking for trouble, and you're gonna get it. And so, anyways, they killed that guy that I was with. I mean, I did everything I could. I begged him. I said, look, we were on watch in what's called the after steering room, and there's a long ladder that goes up through several decks. And I told him, here's a blanket. Go over there and sleep. Because we had headphones. We never wore them because we had this speaker. So if someone called down an order like turn the ship 30 degrees or check some valve or check some timer or whatever, I would hear it. So I said, I'll go to the top of the steps. You go get some sleep. And you can sleep for the whole 3 hours. I'll fill out all your logs. And he's like, no, I can get through this. I don't need that. Well, they kept him awake, I think, for 3 days straight. They would say, oh, you can go sleep now, just to mess with him. And he'd go lay down, and 5 minutes later to say, time to get up. And they did this to him until he just fell off the boat. They had him working on the side of the boat, completely this close to being unconscious, and he fell off the boat and he died. And so I guess I had 2 years left in the Navy. I said, what got me through the last 2 years was planning out this thing where I would get out of the Navy and I would go get a gun, or get my gun, and I would take a train to here and a bus to there and a train to there, and somehow I would work my way back to where my ship was, and I would kill everybody involved. I mean, these people were just so evil, just vile, filthy monsters. And so, because of that, I've always had this paranoia about being able to defend myself. And I'm very weak. I've got all kinds of connective tissue issues. I can't really throw a punch or anything to defend myself. And for most of my life, I've just put my hands over my face and kind of crouched down on the ground and, let them rip. But, if you think about it, all these stories about self-defense, it's basically you go down and you pay all this money for this gun, and then some Muslim extremist or somebody that's high on crystal meth is going to attack your family and kill everybody and burn your house down. And these guys will pull their gun out and kill everybody, and they get put in magazines, they get in the news, no punishment ever. But I've never had to deal with that. I've never had a bunch of crazed meth heads break into my house. It's always been the cowardly, worthless trash of civilization that will destroy my life through, lawyered up rituals. They just call and complain because your grass isn't cut, or they call and complain because your music's too loud, or they have always got some kind of thing that you can't prove and they can't prove, just to get the police to mess with you. And if they keep doing that long enough, the police are going to hurt you. They're going to take you to jail, or they're going to fine you. And it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. The people who are part of civilization are always going to win. If you go back and shoot one of those people, you're going to jail. And no matter what they do, they're never going to jail. That's a promise. Every day, well, it's getting that way. In the United States, there are children that are bullied and abused, and they're bullied and abused until they can't take it. They go home, they get a gun, they go back to school, and they shoot everybody. Who goes to jail? Does anybody ever bring up what's done to these bullies? The ones that survive the attack? No, because that's not a crime. Here's the thing with a gun. You can only use your gun if you've used up every other option. So if you've got neighbors that are always doing stuff to you, they'll look at the paperwork and say, well, you could have hired a team of lawyers and a team of doctors, and we could have fixed this. When in fact, that that's not going to get fixed. But you're going to jail. They're not. The system is designed to make everybody abusive to everybody else. And in fact, the reason that the teachers never would step in when the other children were beating me is because the beatings are part of school. You're supposed to learn that the only way to make the world work is by force. And if you're not one of those people, then they don't need you. You need to learn to defend yourself. Which means if you hear that somebody on the other side of the planet has weapons of mass destruction, then you support bombing those people. And you don't have to worry about evidence. You just do it. You just react like these kids when I was in first grade. So here's another aspect of why I'm not getting a concealed weapon permit, and you need to think about this too. If you're considering getting a concealed weapon permit, look at how things currently work in your jurisdiction and see if that thing will even benefit you. When I got my concealed weapon permit, it was legal to open carry in my state. It was legal to own a gun, legal to have a gun in your house, legal to kill anybody breaking into your house. And so every now and then a bunch of these gun rights guys would put their guns on and they'd go to town and they'd walk around wearing guns until they were arrested. And you know, they'd get teams of lawyers to go in there and they'd spend thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, I'm talking about like just to go walk around town with your gun, you got to spend $10,000 on lawyer fees to get some judge somewhere to say innocent. And you get your stuff back, but you don't get your money back. And some people, they say, well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go in and defend ourselves. Well, in my state, the state of Mississippi, they had some man that put his gun in his holster. According to law, the state of Mississippi law, you can open carry. He went into town, they arrested him, they convicted him, they put him in jail, and the judge's words, his exact words were, I don't care if he was carrying his gun on a string, the part behind the string would be concealed. And so that was just basically a way of not allowing anybody to carry a gun until they paid off a bunch of judges, bought one of those stupid certificates. Well, right after, and I'm talking about within a couple of months after I got my concealed weapon permit, they had some kind of superior court of the state of Mississippi get together and say that all of that stuff had to be overturned. Nobody got their money back. They just decided that from now on they were going to go ahead and stick to the law saying that open carry was okay. But every day, for about a month, every news program would mention that open carry was now allowed, but that anyone who wanted to could get a placard saying no guns allowed. And even if a person had a concealed weapon permit, they could not bring a weapon into your establishment. And I promise you, within about a week, every place I go, my doctor's office, the drugstore, just everything out there had one of those placards. So, you know, if you have a concealed weapon permit and you go in one of those places, you could be arrested for concealed carry irregardless. So, in my life, I don't think I will ever in my life have a situation where I can legally shoot anybody, because everybody in my life that needs to be shot is illegal to shoot. I don't see myself ever being able to carry a weapon into an area where I may be in trouble, because every one of those areas has a placard saying I can't carry a weapon. But another thing that's happened, and this is going to require me just doing a little bit of a demonstration. These guns, if you've ever shot one, and if you're thinking about this, you may not even own a gun yet, but I promise you, and I know if you're watching my channel, you're probably pretty old, because most of my subscribers are old people, like myself. But it is almost impossible to pull this thing down. And I know I have seen people pull them down with just their thumb, but I think when I bought this gun and I was young, I could not pull this lever down with my thumb because of my arthritis. Now, this is what's called double action. A single, or I may have this wrong because it's been so long since I did it, but some guns, when you pull this down, it makes this trigger like a hair trigger. Then you can pull that trigger. If you don't pull that down, you can't pull the trigger. I mean, you can if you're young and healthy, but for somebody like me, it is physically impossible for me to pull this trigger with one hand. I can pull it if I kind of pull with both hands, but you can't aim a gun when you're doing that. Now, the solution is to get this fancy semi-automatic weapon. And this one here, I still can't cock this. This is just like that gun. It's got the thing that you cock it with right here. It's physically impossible for me to cock this gun with my thumb, which makes it ready to go. Well, guess what? This one's ready to go right now. The only thing that's keeping it from having a hair trigger is I've got the safety on. And I physically can turn the safety on and off with my thumb, even though it's difficult. Once that safety's off, you just touch this and the gun's going to go off. But honestly, if it takes that much work to shoot a gun, you're not going to get on target. And if you carry a gun anywhere where there's people around, I mean, if you're somewhere where there's no people, you're okay. If you're somewhere where there are people, that's where you're in danger. And if you try shooting at one of those guys, there's a really good chance you're going to hit somebody else. So I have just determined in my mind, well, the first thing is I'm tired of living anyway. So if a meth head comes in my house or a Muslim extremist and they kill me, I'm good to go. I mean, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to feel a lot of pain. If they just do something that doesn't hurt too bad, I'm okay with it. But the only reason I would carry a gun anywhere else is not for Muslim extremists or meth heads, which are people that are illegal to shoot, because if you shoot somebody that ain't one of those two, you're going to jail. Secondly, if I try to shoot one of those people, I'm likely going to shoot somebody that ain't one of them people. So, do I regret having a gun permit? Well, you know, I'd like to have my money back, but at the same time, it was a learning experience. And so now I know, and I'm telling you, it's a pointless endeavor to play their game. It's a ridiculous, arbitrary, transparent, stupid ritual to get some stupid certificate that ain't going to impress nobody unless they're some kind of a gun nut, and I don't like gun nuts. And so it's stupid. Learn from my mistakes. I know you won't do it. You're going to go out and buy your own stuff and get yourself a certificate, but I'm not renewing mine, and I don't even care about this stuff no more. Oh, before I go, another thing is, if you go get a gun permit and something bad happens, if somehow the politicians actually do something and they actually start trying to round up people that they see as a threat, they're going to go down to the courthouse and pull those files with everybody's name, address, and phone number on it that's got a concealed weapon permit, and they're going after them first. So that's another reason not to have the thing. And once again, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.